Katie Teitler, Senior Analyst with Tag Cyber, and today I'm here with Chris Calvert, CTO and co-founder of Response Software, which was recently acquired by FireEye. Chris, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me on, Katie. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, we're going to have a nice little chat here, but first let's start with a little bit of a level set on XDR, what Response Software builds and sells. So extended detection and response. So detection and response in and of itself, those aren't new capabilities to cybersecurity. And in fact, they're key components of what most people form their programs or cybersecurity programs around. And in the NIST cybersecurity framework, it's identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. So they're pretty basic concepts, but XDR is a new category, relatively speaking. And it emerged out of endpoint detection and response, network detection and response, and the need for cloud-capable detection and response, which is obviously different and has emerged over the years as something that companies absolutely need, especially now that the migration to cloud has accelerated, I don't know how many fold, but a lot fold. And everybody who wasn't in the cloud before is at some level in the cloud now. So let's talk about that. What is XDR? It's, in a sense, an amalgamation of telemetry, and the ability to correlate and analyze it, and it gives SOC teams the ability to triage security events or incidents. But that sounds kind of similar to things we've done in the past, like SIM or SOAR. So how is XDR different?
It's an interesting question. Obviously, it's as a new category, it's trying to extend what came before it and sort of thread the telemetries together. But when you ask the question, how is it different from SIM and SOAR? I think that's one of the most interesting ones. What we did in SIM is we put all of these telemetries in one place for a human in order for the human to thread all of the pieces of information coming out of those telemetries together. With Respond as an XDR, right, we're an autonomous analyst, and so we're actually threading all of that together in software and making that decision. So instead of relying on the human brain to connect all of the dots associated with network telemetry and host-based telemetry and context and threat intelligence and all of the other things that are needed to make an effective decision when you're monitoring security, we've done all that in software. And so that's one of the reasons that you would call it extended. It's a single decision with lots of different inputs. These things used to be done in silos. They used to be done by where it was streaming on a console and a human was, again, threading it together in their head. Now it's done in software in real time, and it ignores, the difficulty in threading it together because it does it all in one mathematical construct.
And this is obviously important, especially for hybrid cloud or multi-cloud environments, I would imagine, because you need that common thread. You can't be looking at on-prem or virtual or cloud in silos anymore.
Right, that's absolutely right. And we've had, honestly, cloud monitoring is in its infancy in and of itself. The telemetry that's available for doing effective cloud monitoring is not very good, what I would call prosecutorial telemetry. It's not good for directly prosecuting and identifying bad guys. So the way you have to do that is add more information in. Use CASB data, use VPN data, use all of the other pieces of telemetry that can be threaded together to try and triangulate what cloud telemetry is not really providing us just yet. It's another good reason for the extended portion of XDR.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Aside from getting different data from here, there, and everywhere, what makes good telemetry? Because we've got data, and we've always had data, but garbage in, garbage out, more doesn't equal better, all the cliches we can throw at you here.
Well, I actually want to argue with more doesn't equal better, even though I want to do it after I talk about what makes good telemetry is judgment in the logs, right? A log that looks at something that says, this looks like either a signature or a behavior or an indicator of things that are bad. So the log needs to have some judgment that this could be bad. And then, what we're going to do is apply probabilistic reasoning to that to try and unpack what's the probability it actually is bad when you put it all together. So it's really important that, you have that judgment within the logs. And, and I was going to take issue with something and I completely slipped my mind while I was explaining the judgment in logs component. So what was the first part of that question again? Sorry.
So, more isn't necessarily better. In this case, it may be, but the ability to correlate obviously is important. But what makes really good telemetry, aside from that correlation and finding, maybe those little tidbits of information?
I remember what my point was, and it's a really, really, really important. More is better. And I see this because one of the things that I do a lot of is I look at the back end of our respond analysts, and I see the incidents that are prosecuted, the telemetry that's used to prosecute them, and then it's supervised machine learning. So I see that our customers have investigated the event and told us whether or not it was real or false. So we can learn on that. When I do an analysis of everyone's sensors, most of these sensors are monitored by humans in managed security services or MDRs traditionally. And with a human, there's an upper limit of what we can monitor. And it's about 75 to 150 events per analyst hour. And I've been tracking that metric since the year 2000. So I'm fairly certain that one's pretty dead on. And the problem is we tune our sensors down dramatically. So I can look and see which sensors find bad guys and which sensors don't. And one of the biggest indicators is the number of signatures that alarm in a given month and the number of events that are seen. So that's equivalent to their sensitivity and to their placement, so their visibility. So that sensitivity and that visibility actually equals more data. And unfortunately, it's more than a human is capable of monitoring. But when you can do this autonomously with mathematics, then more is in fact better. And it's actually one of the reasons that we've insisted that we would never charge based on volume. We don't want to incent people to put less volume in because greater sensitivity and greater visibility equals better detection results.
So more isn't better, asterisk, unless you can use a correlation and an analysis engine, applying advanced algorithms, finding those connections, finding those correlations.
Right, and that is how we describe the respond analyst now. With the XDR category coming available, we're an XDR engine. We're the brain that puts the telemetry with the context, with the intelligence, and makes a probabilistic decision as to whether or not someone should look into it.
That makes a lot of sense. Along those lines, so respond analyst is for SOC operators, correct?
Yes.
And you've called it a force multiplier. It helps SOC operators move more quickly and more accurately. And we all know about the talent shortage in cybersecurity. So what are some of the things, aside from the events correlation and the analysis of more data, better data output, what are some of the things that respond analysts can do for SOC operators?
To me, and this has sort of been my personal mission through this entire company, is to free the security operations analyst from the console. Right now, they might as well be chained to the console. They're metriced by how many alerts they look at and how they interact with them, the cases they open, whether or not those cases are, we're doing scientific management on people, and people don't love it. We should be doing scientific management on our technology to making sure it's optimally configured. But the biggest sort of benefit in the security operations community is we hired these folks to be detectives. We trained them to be detectives. We need detectives in our environment. And what we end up with is people who are watching a screen constantly trying to find bad. And when you unchain them from that and you let them hunt and use their creativity, their curiosity, and their collaboration skills, which are uniquely human attributes that you can't automate, we end up getting a massively better result, right? Humans are far better capable of hunting and pulling threads and trying to see what does this mean and why did it happen. and relying on machines to do that continuous 24/7, 365 monitoring of everything that's coming in order to surface what the humans should interact with. So it's an operational change that frees the humans to do things where they're uniquely capable and allows the machines to do what it's uniquely capable of.
Well, that's so true, because human beings, the stress, the fatigue that comes from that rote activity, it's not the best use of somebody's, especially a skilled person's, capabilities. And when the stress comes in, when the fatigue comes in, they're not as good at their job. We know this. This is basic human psychology. So I really like that, taking that away. We've talked about automation for years. We've talked about machine learning and how it can help. So that seems to me like, something that a SOC operator would love about Respond Analyst. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing and what your team are seeing about emerging trends, emerging threats that are affecting your customers' SOCs.
We see the same things that the news reports on a regular basis, right? And I think the things, sort of the unique visibility that we've been really focused on lately is how well tuned, configured, placed, and optimized the actual sensor grid is. And this is actually one of the things that I think is super important. Again, it's a tangential benefit of having an XDR engine, but now we can take our focus from lots of engineers working on SIM rules and learning from the analysts and that sort of human feedback loop, and we can shift that emphasis and focus to, where are my sensors? How are they configured? Are they optimally tuned? A lot of folks don't put lateral sensors in. They don't put network sensors inside their network. They only have them on the perimeter. Why? It's the converged device phenomenon. If I can buy one device, one management console, one set of people, and just that's perfect, it's easier. Well, it's not better, it's just easier. And so we've weaponized the perimeter completely, and we've not paid anywhere near the attention we need to inside. And we know that they're going to get in. I mean, the recent breach announced, by FireEye, and sort of going on throughout the world at this moment, right? There's always going to be a way in. We need to be able to detect them at many different points in many different forms of telemetry. And probably one of the most important points is laterally. Once they're inside, what are they doing laterally? And do I have the right sensors and the right placement and the right ability to manage that volume of data to catch them, where I've got the second and third and fourth opportunity, rather than just one opportunity at the perimeter.
And that's especially important in cloud, right? Because not all incidents start outside.
Right, that's absolutely the case.
And so if you have nothing to look at lateral movement, nothing to check, the east-west traffic, it's kind of game over.
Well, and this is one of the challenges with the cloud, is there really is no east-west traffic, right? That's inherent on the vendor, right? They talk about the identity being the perimeter, or the system being the perimeter. We've got to approach the cloud in a whole new way. It's not on-prem moved somewhere, someone else's data center. It's a whole new set of responsibilities, right? How the cloud vendor has their responsibilities on the backplane and in the network, and then we have to manage those pieces that are ours. And a lot of folks are passing their users through, cloud access security brokers or additional security controls to be able to understand what goes in and out of their cloud. And as I said earlier, what's inside the cloud and what's happening inside the cloud is very complicated. It's microservices, it's lots of things like that that don't have security telemetry yet. There is no microservices security vendor that I'm aware of at the moment, and it's a clear need. API security, all of these things that are happening internal to the cloud is another area where I think the industry is going to have to go, but that's just more data, and it's massive amounts of more data. So we've got to be better at how we apply humans and machines to that data problem.
Absolutely, absolutely, because the more data you get, if you can't do anything effective with it, it is just more data. So
right, it's denial of service even. to the humans.
Right. Right. Oh, we don't want that to make a big comeback, do we?
No.
So last question here. So we talk about the cloud and what it means for internal teams, and we talked about the cloud and what it can or can not do, but does cloud give attackers the upper hand? How tipped are the scales in favor of the attacker? Is it really, the age-old attackers always have the upper hand because they just need one vulnerability? Is that true still?
Yes, or at least my opinion is that is still true, absolutely. And it's not just that they only need one vulnerability. You think about the definition of attacker's behavior. They're going to try something, it doesn't work. They're going to try something else, that doesn't work. They're going to try something else, that doesn't work. Eventually something works if you just continue down that path. And we as security professionals have 20 or 30 years of trying to be operationally consistent. So we measure how well we repeat ourselves. We give ourselves Carnegie Mellon, SEI, CMMI grades as to how well we repeat ourselves. What happens when we're repeating the wrong things? We've got to sort of change our operational mindset and realize that we're dealing with an agile enemy that's got real economic and espionage incentive, and they're going to try things until something works. So we can't just be the detection of the first thing that works. We need to be able to catch them throughout their entire life cycle of an attack, all the way from whether they're exfiltrating data, doing internal reconnaissance. We need as many opportunities to detect them as possible, and that means multiple telemetries. That means sort of all of that stuff being put together.
It's really interesting because you talk about the attackers being creative, but at the beginning of this conversation, what you said is we need to free up our defenders from those rote activities, the doing the same things again and again and practicing those things again and again till we're perfect at them, but not thinking out of the box. And to me, that sounds like what Respond Analyst is all about, taking that away, giving the defenders the same kind of freedom of creativity that the attackers have.
That's exactly right. And this is why I think hunt is the discipline of the future, and operational monitoring is going to rapidly become automated. Now, it'll inform a hunt. It may direct a hunt, but humans can say, what's the hypercurrent modus operandi? What are the failure logs that are happening and why are they happening? And they can just randomly pull threads, and that's where you're gonna find the attackers. I've built 8 security operations centers in my career, 8 very large ones. And in one of those builds, we would do a fun hunt on Fridays. So we do the 24/7, 365 operational monitoring all week, and then everybody who was interested could come in on Friday, and we'd spend 4 or 5 hours brainstorming, being creative, and hunting through the data in the environment. And in that 4 to 5 hours, we would find more incidents and more critical incidents than had been detected in 7 days of 24/7, 365 monitoring. It was a very clear value difference to me when I saw it.
Yeah, giving people a little freedom, not afraid to mess up, thinking differently about it, and approaching the problem with an attacker mindset. So cool stuff, cool stuff. Well, congratulations on the recent acquisition. We really look forward for what's to come. I'm sure, you probably can't talk much about it here, but we will talk in the future and look forward to those conversations. Chris, thank you. And for everybody watching, thank you for paying attention, for watching our video, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having me, Katie. I very much enjoyed it.